When you come in contact with people, there's two things that happens. Your perception as you gather data to realize the truth, and then their goal. Sometimes you can be preyed upon before you even realize what's taking place. This video is about the behaviors of a predator, and I want you to let me know, have you ever realized when you were preyed upon? Now, let's get this out the way. This isn't about sin or scandal. This is about awareness. Whether you think you have something someone else wants or not. But before we get started, riddle me this. A demon never knocks. It studies the hinges. It flatters the gatekeeper, feeds the silence, and waits for hunger to speak first. When the door finally opens, tell me this, was it invited or summoned? Because it's always better to understand than to be understood.
I was at a bar in Studio City, and there were two young ladies that were there promoting their church. So first off, I know there are club ministries and strip club ministries and people that evangelize. Like, yo, if you're not, where's the camera? If you're not equipped,
say it,
and covered,
say it,
and ready to go out and do that for real, stay home.
Right. Yes.
Because there are real devils and demons that are licking their lips waiting for you.
Yeah.
And what he means is if you don't have the awareness of what people's intentions are, if you cannot be present, be wary, because he's about to go into the behaviors of a predator. And this can scale, small, medium, and large,
to come into their domain.
Yeah.
Whoa. And I was one of them. They gave me a flyer. Hey, we're just here talking about our church. I'm like, oh, that's incredible. Praise God. I love Jesus. Right?
Oh my God. You're convincing me right there.
Yeah. Because listen, but again, I'm a gifted communicator. I'm in sales, charismatic. You know what I mean? Young, good looking.
Yeah.
My mom at least tells me I'm good looking.
Yeah.
And so I'm yes. Matter of fact, let's talk about this over here. You ladies drink champagne? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Get some champagne. So we're talking about like their church. Oh, what denomination? What's this? What's the worship like? What's doctrine? What's another glass.
No.
Keep ordering the glasses. Keep ordering the glasses. And it's like, yeah, so now they're starting to get a little more mellow. And I'm peeping game because my tolerance, I've been drinking almost every day for the past 5-6 years at this point. My tolerance is through the roof. I can drink a whole bottle and still have a conversation with you, right? That's how I was able to avoid the DUIs previously when I got caught in checkpoints. That's a different story. But like we're drinking, we're on like the third, fourth glass of champagne. And then I'm like, hey, you know what, you ladies hungry? Like, let's go and, get food. So we're on the way to the restaurant. I'm like, you know what? I just got groceries. Why do we need to go all the way to Hollywood when we could just go to the house and finish this conversation?
This was the plan all along. Sometimes even on a smaller scale, like if you're working and your boss or somebody else would put majority of the project that needs to be done or the responsibilities on you. The whole time, this was their idea from when they woke up to when they went in was to prey on you. Tell me, have you ever witnessed or gained the awareness later, in hindsight, of course, 2020, that you were set up or you were preyed upon? Did you notice the behaviors taking place?
Now we're at the apartment. And what I noticed is I was just going after the small yes. Yes, I'll have a drink.
Jesus.
Yes, I'll have 2 drinks.
Wow.
Yes, I'll go to eat with you. Oh, you're right. That makes sense. Yes, I'll go to
Because that's what a skilled salesman does.
That's what a skilled salesman and deceiver
And demonic.
And deceit.
does.
Yeah.
Goes after the small yes. I don't need you to just completely give yourself to me right off the rip. Just give me the small yes.
No.
I can work with the small yes.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're in my apartment. Now I have, this is my domain.
This is
Oh my God.
demonic tactic.
You came into my domain at the bar, but now because of your small yeses, you've entered my domain in totality. This is my space. So, hey, have a drink. But now it's not champagne. Now it's vodka. Now we're kicking it up a notch. And I'm cooking, eggs, sausage, what you want. You want some, I'm giving you everything you need. And then, because I'm a gentleman, Southern gentleman, North Carolina, there's no way I can let you ladies drive home. There's no way. It would be irresponsible of me, inconsiderate of me.
This is crazy.
To let you drive home after having you drink all that champagne and, the liquor that you just freely consumed here, right? Just go lay down. Go in my bed, lay down. Okay. Get a t-shirt, everything is there. And so they go lay down. I go check in, everything's good. Yeah, but we feel bad. We don't want to put you out of your room. Like, okay. And without going into too many more details, everybody fell into sin, which started as a church promotion, evangelical mission.
Bro, first of all, that's a sermon.
Satan.
The small yeses is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because I think for some, it's just like retroactively, I just said yes to the glass.
Right.
I just said yes that I'd sit down. That's it. I don't want to, in their minds, when they came over to sit down with you, no one could have paid them to believe they'd end up in your bed.
Right.
Things that you wouldn't do if somebody were to come out and say verbatim what their motive is. So the small yeses is to gain entry to see exactly where you can be manipulated and pushed. And this happens in every scale possible. Like, this is pretty extreme, but having the awareness and being present really allows you to see somebody's direction and where they're trying to take you. And when I say take you, I don't mean like physically, I mean their objective. Now, this is extreme, but these things do happen on different scales, but it's just all about being aware and present. And that's what this channel was all about. Predators do not always announce themselves with claws and teeth, most of the time. They arrive as warmth. They enter as light. They wear the wardrobe of convenience, the mentor, the fan, the lover, the helper. Because the easiest way to take something is to make the owner hand it to you willingly. And to put that into other words, to break your free will, to act upon your free will, to manipulate your free will. The first truth I want to put on the table is simple and brutal. Predation is less often a break-in than a courtesy call that never ends. When you watch someone move through a room, note how quickly your mind supplies a story for them. We are pattern machines. We love tidy narratives. We prefer explanations that fit with the world as we want it to be. Kind, logical, fair. Predators rely on that. They don't need terror to access. They need your brain to keep telling the story that everything is normal. They rely on your mind being a better lawyer for someone else than yourself. Think about the small things. A compliment at the wrong hour. A joke that lands as empathy. Interest that shows up precisely when your loneliness swells. The predator listens to the rhythm of your needs. They are not solving them. They are mapping them. They are learning the seams of your life. Where to pull, where to tug, where to create the gap you'll step through. That's the illusion. Charm becomes camouflage because you mistake it for safety. Happens all the time. Ask yourself, How many times have you rewritten your reality to preserve the image of someone? We see it all the time. How many places have you folded your discomfort into explanation when you're the one who's discomfort? And explaining, this is the doorway each time you tell yourself they're a good person because you want to believe it. The door moves a finger on its latch, and you would ask yourself, what's the cost of not being aware or not being present? And you'd be amazed, because there's a cost when you confuse kindness with covenant. The first cost is time. You spend years defending the idea of someone. You spend emotional bandwidth clearing them from the record of their own behavior, telling stories to your friends, rationalizing red flags, editing the memory of small harms into mercy. Time is one currency predators trade on. The longer you hesitate to name a pattern, the more invested you become in maintaining it. The second cost is identity. When someone convinces you to enter them in your life, their ideas, their presence, you slowly become a supporting character in the narrative of their own design. That trickle drains the architecture of who you were building. You stop asking the basic questions about what you need to thrive because you're busy proving that this arrangement is salvageable. You start protecting them on their own identity. That's not resilience, that's erosion. The predator does not need to destroy you quickly. They will instead make you an accomplice in your own depletion. A kinder, quieter version of surrender. They don't need you to outright submit. They get you to submit through action. Then there is the relational cost. Predation thrives in social silence. People around you who start to hold back. Friends notice the tilt. Family sees the unevenness. This is why you get relationships where families separate because the woman or man is in a relationship that people don't approve that's around you. But social conflict is costly. People prefer calm. The predator leverages that. By the time the social system activates, the predator has already normalized their role. They've made themselves an argument against action by making the price of speaking higher than the price of loss. Silence, in that sense, functions as a transfer of power. The longer you stay silent and afraid of an outcome, the more the predator has a hold on you. This is why when you see relationships of men or women and you see the other reckless while the other is quiet, this is the abuse over years, the silence, feeling small. But lastly, there is the existential cost, the slow but sure diminishment of your sense of sovereignty. There's a peculiar shame that comes with realizing you were led by flattery rather than the truth. You feel stupid, and stupidness becomes a cage because of guilt, because of shame. But here's the thing, shame is always where predators bank. They use it like interest, compound and recurring. Shame keeps people small. Small people are easier to shepherd. Now, the mechanics without the manual. What do you think about when you hear that? Now, when I say mechanics, I don't mean how to do harm. I mean how to spot where harm anchors itself. There are categories of behavior, we can name that are neutral to explain but fatal if ignored. Naming them is not instruction for predators. It's a flashlight for you. First, mirroring that exceeds report. Everyone mirrors unconsciously. It's how conversation flows. But when someone echoes your pain before you say it, the echo can be a map. The taker uses reflection as a mirror, not to connect, but to collect patterns. You're being read. The test is not the presence of reflection, it's the context. Who benefits if you mirror them back? That is keeping everything neutral and reflective. Second, escalating entitlement through small debts. This is the slow acquisition of leverage. Small favors accumulate into an implied ledger. The lever is never transparent. The predator will frame help as shared history, not as a debt owed. The key here is to notice when being reciprocal stops being reciprocal and becomes an expectation of compliance. Third, the neutralization of bystanders. Predators are craftsmen of social chemistry. They are skilled at creating micro roles. The friend who laughs off a comment. The mediator who calls you sensitive. The outsider who convinces you that your reaction is the problem. The tactic is to turn witnesses into allies by diffusing discomfort. When everyone is laughing, it's harder to be taken seriously. Fourth, isolation framed as intimacy. Let's be close. It's different from let's cut others out. If closeness comes with a shrinking of your world, less contact with people who keep you real, the intimacy is then a tool. Intimacy becomes custody. Recognize the redefinition. Fifth, invisible contracts. Predators rarely present explicit demands. They create explicit expectations. The suggestion, the hint, the casual, I would hate for something to happen to you. Those are tests. The tactic is to moralize your silence. Your compliance becomes your loyalty. The contract is internalized. Don't need you to agree with it. And you end up policing yourself on behalf of them. Again, bending your free will. If they can get you to do it, you've done it all. And then they can manipulate and be like, I didn't tell that person not to do that. They did it. It's saying things without saying things. Getting you to do things without making you or forcing you. But naming these give you the language. Language takes you out of fog. That is why words matter. Because once you can call a thing, you can choose it out of your life. Now let's go deeper, because you asked for the shadow. Carl Jung called the shadow everything denied in yourself. The predator's power rests partly on your refusal to examine your own shadow. Why? Because shadows are mirrors. If you refuse to look at your hunger, your greed, your loneliness, you become an easy map for someone who knows the terrain. Just because you are afraid to acknowledge it to yourself doesn't mean the keen eye of someone else doesn't see it. There are two pieces here. The first is projection. When you can't see your own unfinished needs, you project them onto others. You want someone to believe in you. You start believing in them instead. The predator takes advantage of this transference. They do not have to be exceptional. They only have to be precise. They place themselves in the role your psyche wants filled, and then juice that role for leverage. The second is moral arrogance. People who think themselves unassailable, morally, intellectually, spiritually, often have the least practice in nuance. That's because certainty closes the window to the modest. Ongoing work of self-examination. The predator's lesson is this: certainty makes you soft in ways you won't expect. It is easier to exploit absolute believers because they have already outsourced their doubt. Awareness of the shadow is not self-flagellation. It is an armor made of truth. The more honest you are about the parts of yourself you prefer hidden, the less surprised you will be when someone else plays them against you. If you know that loneliness is a weak spot, you can name it when someone attempts to feed it. Naming the hunger disarms the bait. That is the secret. Clarity breaks illusion. Now, the platforms and the new ways of predators. Modern predators are not bound to alleys. They live in DMs, recommendation feeds, mentorship, corporate ladders, and the soft architectures of trust we build around daily life. The same mechanics apply, but the scale is different. Digital spaces amplify small signals and compress time. A compliment in a DM accumulates like interest. A narrative in a comments thread becomes a community norm. Algorithms favor engagement and patterns. Predators exploit that. We must therefore adopt digital hygiene as part of the psychological hygiene. That means boundaries in direct communication, transparency in relationships that involve power imbalances, and a healthy skepticism for anyone who moves quickly to privatize your connection. Privacy is not paranoia. It is protection. Ask for witnesses. Keep conversations where others can see them if they concern major life decisions. If mentorship is private, ensure there are multiple references. Public endorsements mean social risk for the mentor, and therefore a higher barrier to predator behavior. But beyond platform mechanics, we must teach a cultural grammar of consent that goes beyond sex. Consent in modern life is about ownership of attention, time, and future. When someone seeks to redirect your career, your relationship, or your finances under the guise of concern, recognize this is a consent negotiation. You do not have to hand over your trajectory because someone persuades you with charisma. So these are the guardrails that you want to use, right? When you feel uneasy, name the pattern out loud. Practice naming it to someone you trust. This feels off. Can I run it by you? Risk transferring the emotional load so the pattern can be seen from outside. Always communicate with someone outside of what you're going through. Predators operate best in isolation. Always track time and investments. Write down interactions that feel like they're asking for increasing deposits of trust. Trying to coerce you. If someone asks for a private favor, record it. Revisit the list weekly. Patterns persist. Randomness does not. And remember, keep parallel networks. Maintain independent relationships and advisors in your life. People who know your long game provide reality checks. Mentors should not be monopolies. Pause on privilege transfers. Any requests involving money, living arrangements, or large favors deserve external consultations. Make it routine to sleep on a major ask and discuss them with a third party. Never make an impulse decision that can land you in time wasted. Always take a day to process. And this is very important. Teach language to loved ones. The phrases you learn to name tactics must spread. Teach your children, siblings, and close friends how to say, "This is making me uncomfortable," without guilt. Normalize boundary enforcements. Because if the next generation does not know how to communicate or voice their actual feelings, there's always somebody praying. There's always somebody in the jungle. And this is probably the number one. Practice the gentle no. No must be a usable word that doesn't crater into drama. Practice small rejections in low-risk areas. Build the muscle so when the stakes are higher, you don't freeze up. And own your shadow. Spend deliberate time examining your needs. Be reflective with yourself. Be real with yourself. Because if you don't, somebody will use the things that you hide against you. It happens all the time. Now, from my own personal account, there's a moment in every story like this where you feel furious and foolish. Whether you let somebody get the upper hand on you or coerce you because your lack of awareness or lack of experience in life. People wait for the naive. And once that naive glass is broken, life gets a little crazy. It's a lot of gray. It's not black and white. And as I've grown up and gotten older and sat back and just observed life, like when I was a writer pursuing Hollywood, and I would go to meetings and be on set of movies and TV shows and all these things, I would sit back and just watch the behavior and just be present and just download exactly what's going on. And once you've been on a few sets, and once you've been at a few parties and a few events, you start to see a pattern that nets results, and you start to see a pattern of what people are willing to do when desperation is in the air. And I tell you this, predators can sense desperation. And I don't mean the frantic kind. I'm talking about they know why you're there. Key words that you would just drop in a conversation reveals who you are. Because as I'm listening and paying attention to people talking, and that phrase, "Oh, I would love to be a fly on the wall." Well, I was that fly. And I would see the person presenting information and the receiver, how they twist the words, gain confidence out of the person, gain trust out of the person, and the relationship carries on, and then you would know what would happen down the road. Predators are real, and they scale. And to think that you have nothing to take, right? Because you're coming in with nothing. Sometimes your innocence is what they want. Sometimes to break that naive viewpoint is what they want. They have a street term, turn you out. Sometimes just that is what they want. The essence of your character. It could be nothing else. What do they say? "Oh, you look so innocent." And then they would pursue to see if they can break that innocence. Sometimes it just boils down to that. Sometimes it's not tangible things. Sometimes it is. "Oh, they have a lot of money." Well, I have seen so much. I have seen so much. But we begin with a riddle. Was the door ever invited or summoned at the beginning? So that was the question. Was the door invited or summoned? The answer is both and neither. Sometimes you handed the key willingly because you mistook hunger for promise. Sometimes someone pushed through because you were asleep at the hinge. The useful answer is not moralizing, it is strategic. Understand how doors open, and then build better doors. Predators are not supernatural. They are opportunists with keen observation. The real demons are the part of us that prefer tidy stories to messy truth. The part that love being believed because belief feels like meaning. The part that refuses to look in the mirror for fear of what they might see. That is what predators exploit. So here's your offer. Be the person who names the uncomfortable thing out loud. It's okay. You can do this. Teach the language to the people you love. Lean and train your no to be usable. Keep your life in parallel systems of accountability. Treat compliments like invitations that need time. Treat intimacy as a covenant with witnesses. And every time you feel slightly ashamed for having been deceived, remember this. Being fooled once does not mean you are a fool forever. Shame is a story. Change is a practice. Replace the story with practice. A demon doesn't need to break in. It waits while you sleep and then smiles when it finds the door already open. Close your doors with the discipline of someone who values the architecture of their future, because it's always better to understand than to be understood. You guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you in the next one.